Hello, hello. I hope everyone is going great. Hope everyone's day is awesome. But first, I have to preemptively say that the first 10 minutes or so of this podcast is going to not have my volume. So, I guess not going to, but it didn't. So, as a result, I cut out about the first 10 minutes because it was basically, that intro side of things. Kennon and I were getting back on the same page and everything, re-meeting each other. Well, not really re-meeting, but reconnecting a little bit, but nothing of substance was kind of out of range there. So, hop into episode 81 if you haven't seen Kennon's first episode. I think it was episode 41 or 42. Go look back at that just so you can get some context of who Kennon is, and then hop back into this one. So, have a good one. Love it. Peace.
Yeah, it's a weird where it is, but yeah, all of North Carolina and at least that much of Ohio is. I'm pretty sure all of Ohio is Eastern. But yeah, it makes it easy. And this year was the start of the Apple TV deal with the MLS, which is I think a 10-year contract. And one thing they did was unify and standardize days of the week that games are played and times that kickoff happens. Now, there are one-offs. I know there's a lot of people who said, oh, it's all Saturdays. Well, there are Sundays, and there are Wednesdays. And there's random days because you also have to consider U.S. Open Cup. This year, there's a new competition that's in July. That's Leagues Cup that will change things up. But for the most part, I can expect kickoffs to be Saturday at 7:30 local, or if we're playing a different when we played Nashville, it was 8:30 because it was Central, and then when we play Portland, it's going to be 10:30 my time. But any home Eastern Conference team or any Eastern Conference teams that are at least within the Eastern time zone will be a 7:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturdays for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I was interested about the time difference as well, but that works, all Eastern time and everything. So are you just camped out in your little office space, just got game up, and how can you get a live feed? Or, do you have access to a live feed or?
So I do have, obviously through the MLS deal, I'm able to watch it through the broadcast the same way that fans would.
Right, but live.
Yeah, no, it is live. That's the thing.
There's no delay.
Well, I mean, it's not like I have to do something instantaneously.
That's true.
Our social people would.
That's true.
But I am watching it about as live as possible. I would say it's probably as live as you can get because I also have the app and I get notifications when scores happen or something, and my phone is always behind. So right. I must be pretty accurate. But no, it's the timing is not hard at all. And then I know different designers throughout the league have different responsibilities as far as game days. Mine is kind of I'm more of a photo editor / runner during games. So basically what I do, I have the broadcast up typically in the middle. I have 3 screens, so easy to spread out. So I'm watching it here to keep things live. I've got my phone ready. And typically the photographers, whether it's our team photographer or freelancers, both, they can text me photos and I can airdrop it, run it through our Lightroom preset, crop, size down, and send just a few to social people. So they're not here's 34 photos, have fun. It's more here's a few highlights from so-and-so. This was a goal. This was a pre-match thing. We have a whole shot list. So it takes that. Obviously, it's not a design thing, but it's still that's what I do during game days. Now, that might change over time. There may be a time where I might start doing some live stuff, but as far as visual design work, that's all done in advance. So our score templates are prepared and editable for our social people. Anything like match day, starting 11, those things, we pre-build that stuff and basically hand it off because Grant and Carlos have kind of a live pulse on, okay, these are the guys who are here, this is our 11, things that they would see because they're at home and away with the team all the time, whereas I really only have to worry about home games currently.
Yeah, what's it like? I mean, I know I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm very interested on your update and everything, but what's your, you said you're going up to Columbus. Are you going up there? Do they have a home game this weekend? I don't remember if you said they had a home game this weekend.
Yeah. So I'm going up for we'll be playing. Funny enough, we'll be playing Charlotte, which is I saw them on the road in Charlotte too. So now I'm 2 for 2.
Right.
Yeah. But we have two this week. So tomorrow we play the Colorado Rapids at home, and then on Saturday we have Charlotte at home as well.
Is the Rapids in the league, or is the Cup still going?
The cup is still going, but unfortunately, the crew lost to the Riverhounds, who are USL C team at Pittsburgh, and which is, by the way, a really cool stadium if you have the chance to check it out. It's right by the not only is it right by the river, but there's also you can see a train go by sometimes. It's a very picturesque spot.
Oh, cool.
I highly recommend the visit. But no, the Rapids are a Western Conference team in the MLS.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I forget about the what's it called, like the Lamar Hunt. Is it the Lamar Hunt Open Cup or whatever?
The Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah, I forget about that sometimes. But I like if I remember correctly, last year there was a USL team that like made it to like the semis or the quarters or far enough. Oh my goodness, I gotta look this up.
I was gonna say I know it was a Western Conference team. I want to say it was it Phoenix Rising or San Antonio maybe. I'm totally butchering it because I wish I could remember too.
It was
quite the run.
It was like a oh my goodness. Of course you can.
It was a USL championship team. I remember that.
Sacramento made it to the final.
Sacramento. Okay.
Yeah, that's where it was. Yeah, Sacramento made it to the final.
Yeah.
And then it was Omaha Sporting KC and LA Galaxy Sacramento in the quarters. So 2 USL teams made it into the quarterfinals, which is awesome. That's awesome to see.
Yeah, there are runs, and I mean there have been. I mean the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup is the oldest soccer tournament in the United States, so it's far predates MLS, and so there have been non-MLS winners, but obviously in recent years it has been very dominated by the MLS. Last year it was Orlando who won it, so we'll go to see. It'll be interesting to see who does it this year. Obviously the Riverhounds beat us, so they're going to go on to play. I think they go on to play Cincinnati if my bracket memory serves me correctly.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a prediction on where Columbus is going to end up this year?
Oh, that's a tough one, man. Like, obviously, I've only really gotten as plugged in as I am now working for the team.
Right.
I think that with how the playoffs have changed this year, there's more teams that could make it, and they were about once. I think they were one spot off last year from making the playoffs. So I think that this year, making the playoffs would be probably it's the expectation, I would say,
right,
from fans, and I think this team could do it. It's a lot of young guys. There's a new head coach with Wilfred Nancy, so it's hard to tell. We're still pretty early. I think we're only a third of the way through the season now, maybe a little bit over a third of the way. So now is the meaty stretch, especially because we're about to go play through June, and then we're going to stop and play Leagues Cup for a month, and then come back, play the rest of the season. So it would be nice. It'd be really cool to see this team do well, but it's still a little bit early to figure out who's, how far we'll really go. But I have a feeling we're going to at least make the playoffs, and then just like with any playoffs, it's anyone's game at that point.
Right. Yeah, the Eastern Conference, like honestly, as of like the past couple years, has just been churning out like super competitive teams. Like usually it was like, Philadelphia, Atlanta, the past couple years, and New York City had a good run. What was that, 2 years ago? They won or was that last year they won the MLS Cup? 2 years?
No, it was
21?
2 years. Yeah. They beat Timbers in the final. Yeah.
So like there were usually like those like cliche Eastern Conference teams that would like make it out. Like obviously Columbus was always in there. But like now, I mean, Cincinnati has had the turnaround of a lifetime. Like New England, the Revs are like in the conversation now.
Yeah. When we played the Revs at home, they were top of the East at that time. Something you'll hear a lot is if you're tuned in at all with the MLS sphere is you'll hear that this league has a lot of parity, which is true because I think that like if you look at the table right now, like the best team in the East, Cincinnati, has 10 wins, and then it's 10, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5, 5, 5. So like obviously there's only been 14, 15 matches played, but like
Right.
least amount of wins so far are in the threes, and then there's plenty of fives and all that. So I mean, like, there's definitely a lot more chance for you to be competitive within this league. Even the stronger teams, they might start running away, but then like the second and third won't be that far off. And again, there's more playoff spots this time. There's I think it's 9 per conference out of 14 per. Yeah, there's 15 in the East right now, 14 in the West, but both have 9 playoff spots to play for. So I mean, the space is there. So even if you're not doing so well, there is a chance you could still make the playoffs.
Right.
But that's cool though, because then you have a chance at off season and playoffs are where magic can happen.
Yeah, like the way the MLS is structured, like, is so Americanified, but I think that's what kind of makes it super interesting within the world of soccer. Because it turns into a bracket system. I know like leagues across the world have like a second half to the season. Like usually like the like bottom tier like leagues and the European leagues have like a second half to the season. Like I know in Scotland they have a second half, Belgium they have a second half. Like it's like a completely like new table. So I know there's different kind of formats across the world, but like incorporating playoffs and a postseason into like a already playing, what do they play? They play like every team in their conference twice, right? So or 3 times.
It's 30, 32, 33 games.
So yeah,
I'm gonna regret saying that because it's gonna be like, oh, like it's 38.
Well, let me just page down to 2022. 34 looks like everyone plays.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so they play 34 games, and then on top of that, if you're a 9 seed or well, I guess you're an 8 seed because you have to do the playoff, right? So if you're an 8 seed and you go all the way, you're winning your first round and your second round within interconference, right? Your conference games, right? Your play-in and then your regular bracket game, and then you go to quarters, semis, which is 2 legs, and then you go to the finals, right? You play a shit ton of games. There's a lot of games there to play for. So it's like, to where, like, I wonder what the Premier League would look like if they had a playoff system.
That would be interesting. Yeah. So, and also just to let you know, because again, this year is different. I had to pull it up because we're not there yet. And again, this is a new playoff format. So I'll give you the news.
Okay.
When they announced it back in February. So decision day is on the 21st, which will tell you who's in. And there's a lot more to it. So wild card matches will go from the 25th to 26th in October. Then you'll have round 1, best of 3 matches from October 28th to November 12th. Then you'll have conference semifinals and conference finals from November to December. And then the MLS final or cup final will be on December 9th. Qualification seeds 1 through 7 in each conference are automatic, and they qualify for the round 1 best of 3 series. And then seeds 8 and 9 from each conference will go into a wild card match. So it's kind of like you've seen that with a lot of things, like the NBA basketball having their play-in stuff now.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if there's someday some change with the NFL where they're like, all right, well, as if this wasn't, we have the least amount of games, we need more games. So we're gonna do a new playoff series. Like, it's one thing when you think about how many games are in like baseball and hockey and basketball, and then you're like, by the way, we're gonna make your playoffs a little bit longer. Also, we like what these soccer guys are doing, having interseasonal playoffs and other tournaments within your season. Let's do that too, like on top of your 82 NHL games or however many baseball games you're playing. It's
right.
Everyone's gonna copy each other until we're all playing 200 games a season.
Right, and it's just overlap everywhere.
365 games a year.
Constantly. There's always
no
games.
Breaks.
No off season.
Nope.
It constantly happens.
You have an off season when you retire.
Right. So since we're talking about soccer, I have to bring up the elephant in the room for you, as it was pretty recent. the
Oh,
collapse of your club. I have to bring
my
it up.
beloved Arsenal.
Your beloved Arsenal.
Yes. I will say this, and I will say this to my whole chest, and I'm happy for any Spurs fans or rival fans to say anything they want and quote tweet me on this. But like seriously, I don't understand why there are so many Arsenal fans who are being like, we didn't bottle it. Don't call it a bottle. I'm like, dude, it was a collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to call it that? Because bottle sounds not nearly as bad. A choke job. Like, I know you don't want to be associated with things we typically say about like Tottenham fans and Tottenham Hotspur and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it was a bottle job. Like the longest streak of first place, I think it was like 240 something days
Mm-hmm.
in the top position. And it didn't matter that we lost. We could have basically won, like stayed there, lost to City twice, and still won the league.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a huge collapse at the end of the season, and there was a dip last season too, where it was like doing okay, doing good, and then at the very end,
Right.
which is how we missed out on Champions League last year.
Right.
But I have a lot of thoughts, but I at least want to start with saying, Arsenal fans who are so afraid to call it a bottle, stop. Like it was a bottle job. It was. We fell apart. We choked. We collapsed. We bottled.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is.
We'll get
Don't
back.
live with it.
Right. Yeah. We'll for the listeners that aren't into soccer, we'll get back into design here in a sec. But yeah, like I listened to a podcast called Pitchside with Theo Baker and Reeve. Well, Reeve may not be on there much anymore, but you know, all like the majority of the people that they have on are huge Arsenal fans, and that was what they were saying. They're like, in the beginning of the season, no one was expecting us to make this run, and we finished second. But like, it's a bottle because of how it happened.
Won the league.
It's because how it happened. If you were in first, if you were back and forth in first and second, maybe dropped on the third a couple times or fourth, then you battle your way back up to first. Like you make it like a competitive kind of 4-team race or 3-team race, then there's a different conversation. But if you're in first for 85% of the season and you don't finish in first,
At least the lowest they could have gone at that point was second. So I mean, it's just like,
right.
You take what you can, back in the Champions League for the first time in 6 seasons, and having our, as far as I can remember, the best points record ever in the Premier League's era at least, and lots of promise. I mean, like most people at the start of the season were like, make top 4 or make Champions League, do those things. They did that. It just happened to be being super successful and then being like, yeah, we got this, and then it fell apart, and it's like
all fall apart.
It is what it is. But that's the beauty and tragedy of sports is it giveth and it taketh, and most of the time it taketh.
Yeah, I do applaud it though, because super young club, or not young club, young squad,
young players. Yeah.
You had a handful of guys, Xhaka in there, mainly. Was he captain? He's captain, right? Captain
Odegaard is.
Odegaard?
Captain Xhaka was for a while, and he's definitely swapped it. But Odegaard is the new captain, or it was the new captain as the season, which we all kind of expected at some point.
Right. Yeah, like you have all these like younger, like Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard is finally, I think, living up to the hype of his 17, 16-year-old self, getting into Real Madrid's first team. And I mean, shit, what, he's 25, 24. It feels like he's been playing professional soccer for 15 years. But, and he's still super young, so it's like finally being able to see him play at the highest level, and the level that like everyone was like expecting and hoping him to. Obviously, young wonder kids flop all the time, but seeing him capitalize and take after, not directly, well, maybe directly after Ozil. Did he directly replace Ozil's spot when Ozil left, or no?
Ozil was a while ago. It's so weird. Like time.
Is there a big gap in there? Am I missing like a whole era of like attacking mids for?
I just say this, like my frame of reference, because of 2020, like 2020 felt like 2 years, so like it just kind of expanded my expectations of, man, what season was this, what that. So like at this point I'm just like, if I can't remember, just gonna blame it on 2020. Like that's what ruined my gap. But no, there's a lot to be excited about as an Arsenal fan. I think that with a few key changes so that there's actual rotation, and just keep trying and trying, I think we could see some good stuff. But again, you could also have a really good team and then have nothing to show for it. So
like Chelsea.
Yeah. I was saying, the list is long. There's so many teams that, even outside of soccer, I could pick on a few people, but it's I'm hopeful. I'm excited. Had a lot of fun this season. Had a lot of heartbreak. But considering I try to not be as emotionally invested as I used to be, makes it a little bit easier. But it did suck. To be like, I had it like on my calendar for the last Premier League of the day, a day of the season. So I watch it anyway because all the games go on at once, and sometimes there's drama. Like in the Bundesliga for promotion up from the second division up, Hamburg was pretty much guaranteed at that point. They were finishing their game. They're like, the fans stormed the pitch, everything, and then the team who could have swapped places with them scored 2 in the last minute and went up. And now Hamburg is still in the second division, even though they invaded the pitch.
Oh my goodness!
So there's drama. And that's the beauty of the last day. But I had it on my calendar, and obviously the Premier League had already been won by City before that, so I was just kind of like, I'll just watch it because it's a yearly tradition for me at least.
Right. Yeah. And in Dortmund, pretty much giving the season to Bayern, going down.
Yeah, it's like
early
one of Bayern's worst seasons in recent memory, and they still
Oh
stumbled their way up to a championship. They're 11th in a row. So sometimes it happens like that, man. That's the beauty of sports.
That is. Kind of getting back. I'm just kind of segueing back a little bit into into design here, so we don't talk about soccer too much. For the people that don't care, I felt like it was gonna be like it was. I like soccer
you're talking
a lot.
to the guy who designs for soccer teams.
Exactly. We have to talk about soccer. That's what I was gonna say. I like soccer a lot. You like soccer a lot. You work for a soccer team. You support an amazing club in Arsenal. And we gotta talk about soccer. That's just what it is. So I'll ask you a very cliche question about your young career in the MLS. What has been your favorite thing you've been able to put your hands in? Obviously, things that you can talk about, but what's been like your favorite experience so far? I know there's probably a lot to pick of.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think the biggest thing is really honestly like getting to focus all of my time and energy on, like, my job, at least on a sport that I'm extremely passionate about, that I've loved for such a long time. And I watch a lot of sports. I watch a lot of leagues, so I feel like I could have that passion in other areas, but soccer will always be number one for me. And to be able to do it for a domestic league here in the United States, and to represent a club, not only an original MLS team, but they are the original MLS club from the 96 era. So, that's really cool. And they have 2 cups to their name, and they have other trophies. It's a historic club, and it's been around for as long as this version of the MLS has been around. It's really cool. And, funny enough, like, without going into too many details, but like, there's a lot of parallels in some ways between Raleigh, where I'm from, and Columbus, in terms of like makeup, and they're both cities on the rise, and there's a lot of cool things about it. Similar population sizes, tech industries, all these kind of things. Really cool. And I've had some previous Columbus experience in the past, because I've had, back during my band touring days, we came through Ohio a lot, and I have a lot of friends in Columbus. And I'd actually been to games at historic Crew Stadium long ago. So just a cool connection. But really, I can't say that I've yet had a singular moment to nail down yet, but I can definitely say being disconnected to a sport I'm extremely passionate about, and getting to work with really amazing people on my team. I can't be happy enough about it. I love it.
That's awesome. The awesome thing, like, connecting with you and connecting with Ryland, designer for Charlotte, for the people that don't know, or for Charlotte FC. Being able to see, because like you guys repost the stuff that you guys make and you guys do with your respective clubs, and seeing the evolution from, not just your clubs that you guys work for, but the evolution of creative within the league, and being able to see how influential, because like the MLS, like let's just say it, the MLS is a small league in perspective to the world of soccer, right? So drawing influence from Europe is, in other leagues and big leagues is like, that's just a natural type of thing. But seeing how the creative in the MLS stands up to the creative across the world and stands out from the creative across the world, like now this whole new deal with Apple TV and everything that is like making you guys produce more content and more behind the scenes content, and really getting a feel of, the league as a whole, and having it not just be like the major league soccer. It's like you get to dive more into learning about the teams, kind of similar to like what the NFL has done with like Hard Knocks, and I don't know if they've done anything similar in the NBA or the MLB, but yeah, like the league and the creative aspect of the league is just evolving, and it's evolving for the better, and it's just awesome to see. As a very young fan of soccer, it is the best thing to see, because I started looking up to the European leagues, and then now getting more into the domestic league. And like I was big, you may have known this, I may have told you this, but like I was a huge LAFC supporter when they first came out. Carlos Vela is like one of my favorite players of all time. My buddy and I, my best friend and I, we're like, okay, we're going all in. We went to a handful of games the first year, handful the second year, and I'm like, this is great. I love it. I've never experienced soccer like that in my life before. And for the people that don't know, LAFC's supporter group, the 3252, is one of the most entertaining and one of the most, like, I don't want to say reputable, but like they're known for going crazy and like having a good time, like standing up.
They party hard. Yeah. They travel pretty well, at least within the Western Conference, from what I've seen.
They do.
And I know a couple people who are within it, and I mean, it looks like they have a lot of fun. Yeah, and that's something I think you see a lot across different supporters groups, because there are official supporters groups throughout the entire league. Some teams have one, some teams have multiple, some teams have collectives. Everyone does it a little bit differently, and I know that, like you said a little bit earlier, like there definitely is that influence that comes in from Europe. But it's kind of like when you don't have a template to start with, especially a lot of these expansion clubs, like you do take some influences, but you kind of work to make it your own. So like, that's why American chants sometimes borrow from similar melodies and similar cadences as European ones, but then you get ones that are a little bit more uniquely American. And, they might get mocked online from like Euro people, and they're always, but I'm like, what do you want? Do you want them to not copy, or do you want them to copy? Like, what do you want to do? And I think that also goes to creative. And I think that I would be so bold to say that very few leagues around the world, their creative is as good as the MLS. Soccer specifically. Obviously, there's different volumes to different things. But I say this because I want you to go, listeners, you, whoever, I want you to look at some of the big teams outside of England, specifically, because a lot of the English teams have really good creatives. But like Bayern Munich's series, like I follow a bunch of clubs. So like I looked at Bayern Munich this year. It looked kind of basic. It looked like something rudimentary, and I don't know what their situations are, so I'm not judging on this, but it is definitely different. Real Madrid stuff, it's the torn paper, slanted text, like it doesn't look anything crazy. But then again, like when you're Real Madrid, do you need a good graphic team? Like you want that, and you'll have all these people who do sick edits and stuff, and they're like, yeah, I could do a good job. It's like, yes, but this is Real Madrid. Like they care about revenue stuff. Like they don't necessarily need the flashy stuff now. And I guess that's part of why the MLS creatives, why I'm so proud of all of my peers of like pushing the boundaries, because like we do kind of have to capture the eyeballs a little bit more than say like a Real Madrid or Barcelona.
And I think it's the nature of where the league stands in the United States.
Yeah,
You know.
but I also would say that's where we're uniquely American in that way too, because if you look at how social across the NFL, the MLB, NBA, like all WNBA, NWSL, all across American leagues, you will see a little bit more personality in how social is done. The video teams are a little bit more creative. I mean, hell, look at college. Like I would honestly go to say that there's a lot of college departments that have cooler, flashier everything than some pro teams in America and abroad. Like
Hmm.
the amount of work that some people put in at a college level too. Like don't sleep. I told a lot of my coworkers who hadn't had college experience, like don't sleep on college, man. Just because like it's not pro sports doesn't mean that these
Hmm.
people aren't putting as much work. I would say sometimes you got to keep up with the college guys.
Hmm. Yeah, it's great to see how the evolution of everything with the league. The consideration and attention to detail and everything just gradually getting better together. As the league
Yeah.
expands, as the league gets bigger and develops a more like serious reputation. I would say serious is probably the best word to say when it comes to the MLS, in comparison to like European leagues and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like all I got to say is like kudos to not only you and your team, but everyone in the MLS that has to develop and curate and concept and produce over and over and over again to to push the league farther and to push not only the team that they're working for, the organization that they're working for, but the league as a whole.
No, definitely. I think
it's
each creative's work within the league pushes the league forward as well.
Yeah, it's such a pivotal thing to where, like, I don't like. Maybe it's just because it's my focus has shifted the past like handful of years now that I'm like getting into sports like as a career. But I don't know, like the focus on social media presence and really connecting with your audience in many different ways rather than just putting a product on the field. Like that's just become so important. I don't know if it was before I started paying attention, and if it was, I apologize. But like being able to showcase the product that you're putting on the field, obviously like soccer specific, you want to have the team get results, right? If they're not getting results, if you're Inter Miami sitting in the bottom of the Eastern Conference right now, like your product isn't performing. There's only so much you could do, right? But like if you're developing good creative, it keeps your fans engaged. Like there's more to the product than just a win or a draw or a loss. There's personality, there's connection, there's relatability, and that's just with such a juvenile league compared to other leagues across the world within the same sport. The MLS found a loophole and they're exploiting it. Well, I don't want to call it a loophole, but like an aspect of creative that connects fans to players and creates more of a, I'll say it again, a connection with the people, with the teams and people that the audience supports. It creates more of a dedication and a loyalty towards a domestic league rather than going and supporting a team outside the country where you can't really have that connection,
Yeah. No, I think that's something that's really been pushing forward with the MLS and also, with other soccer leagues in the United States as well. I think the NWSL has been growing pretty well. It's it's great how it's reaching bigger audiences locally and around the states. The USL is still growing pretty well. Like there's all bunch of lower tier leagues that are connecting, and obviously every league at different level connects differently, but it is still cool to watch it continue to grow. Something that a lot of people wouldn't have thought of maybe 20-30 years ago, and now it's like really being a serious movement across all levels, and that's really.
Oh boy, we may have lost Kennon. Did we lose you? We're good.
You froze there for a sec too.
What were you saying? You're gonna have to repeat what you said.
I guess it is really cool to see how across all levels of soccer within the United States that we're seeing movements and connections that we wouldn't have thought about 20-30 years ago. So I think that's really cool that it's becoming more of a presence here.
Yeah, for sure. So, natural segue to finish the podcast here. Coming up in 2026, we have a monumental situation for the North American, soccer culture. Canada,
Massive.
United States, and Mexico are getting the biggest, I would almost say the biggest sports tournament on the planet. Most popular sports tournament on the planet is being hosted right here in North America, between the three countries, which is very interesting. I like how they're collaborating countries. I've been hearing rumors of like weird European countries collaborating that are like so far distant from each other where it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think if memory serves me correct, the only other joint World Cup was Japan and Korea, which was a while ago.
Yeah,
Now,
it was
but I think that we're seeing more bids because we've seen that also with like the Euros and other stuff. So, I mean, given just how, yes, the United States by themselves could have hosted, I think so could have Mexico, and probably so could have Canada. But I think that there is something to be said about kind of their unity between the three nations that it almost makes more sense to do it that way anyway. And I think it's really cool how it's spread out too. Of course, there's all the predictions of where's the final going to be. Like the U.S. got the most cities, so the prediction is maybe Estadio Azteca is going to be where the final is, or who knows? We'll find out.
SoFi is going to toss so much money in there. They're going to get a Super Bowl and a World Cup final.
I don't think they're going to get a final. I feel like that I may be wrong on this, but there was something about like when they were designing it, when they were measuring where the pitch comes and everything like that, that I remember seeing somewhere that there was some small detail and sizing basically that made it so that they wouldn't have been able to host the final. But that might change. They might, grease some hands and say, whatever, we're still going to have it in LA. That would be interesting because, I mean, they built the stadium and immediately had a Super Bowl and that team won it. So, I mean, like they could be like, all right, we're going to host a World Cup, have the final, and maybe America wins it there. Who knows?
Right. So obviously why I brought this up is the controversy of the logo mark that they produced. Whoever produced it.
There's a lot of mixed opinions.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a good start to it. So I remember.
Go for it.
I'll tell this to the audience members. I totally once it came out, I immediately messaged him and said I want to talk about this because I didn't like it then, still don't like it now. But I want to start with this a little bit differently because people are going to have their opinions, and that's fine. But hear me out on this. I will say this: people are going to bat for it a little bit too much, and I have to remind people that this is the biggest soccer organization in the world, and it's also extremely corrupt, like very corrupt. Really, it's like yes, it's really great that we're getting the World Cup here, but at the same time, it's like. We're also kind of getting involved with some messy stuff just by even participating, and that's a whole nother story in itself. But it's a corrupt organization.
Just look up 2022 World Cup Qatar.
I mean, it goes before that. Yeah,
most recently though,
and it extends beyond just the World Cup too, just FIFA in general.
Right.
But I digress. So don't go to bat for FIFA as much as you want to. But I will say this: like, if you look at previous logos, and this is true about a lot of tournaments. The NHL, the Stanley Cup, maybe not as much because they didn't go through too many changes. The NBA finals, the Super Bowls, World Series. We've had a lot of things. The Euros. Like if you look at a lot of tournaments, there's always been change, and there's been this move, especially in soccer, to become more and more modern and more minimalist and all this kind of stuff. And you can have your own opinions on that. And for me, I would say, honestly, overall, a lot of it's been pretty good. But in this instance, it's like there's a lot of character missing. And I think, a lot of people were like, oh, well, it works in context and all stuff. So let me remove everybody's creative Twitter brain for a minute and say this. Like a good graphics package does not make a good logo. Like, I would prefer a good logo that you build around instead of, I understand, like it looks good, like each in terms of they all have different colors. There's a few cities, not all of them.
In terms of application.
yeah, there's a few cities that have patterns,
Hmm.
but like, when I was looking at one of them, it was blue with the same World Cup logo. The other one was orange, and I'm like, that tells me absolutely nothing about this city. I know people were talking about, oh, it's so hard to capture this. I'm like, dude, like, it's never about capturing the cities. It's never about. It's not even. Sometimes it's not been about capturing the host country, but sometimes it does. Like, I mean, I think in a couple of the past ones, even the Qatar one, like, I think it really did lean into that. But for this one, it's a huge, bold, modern, minimalist font with a JPEG cutout. And I forget who it was. I think it was Ethan J. Some on Twitter said like somewhere somebody has a folder on their hard drive that says like it's like the version of the vector that has like the actual like vectorized logo or whatever.
Right.
So I guess instead of me leaning into what I don't like about it, I would say like again, don't go to bat for a corrupt organization that absolutely could have done a better job. Absolutely. And yes, it's cool in application, but by itself, the only thing it will be remembered for, and you can quote me on this 20 years from now if you want. The only thing it'll be remembered for is how divisive it was, not how good it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it. That's why it's memorable because it stands out too much.
So I found Ethan's tweet. He said,
Yeah, please tell me.
He quote tweeted it. He said, "I'd bet good money that they originally had a cool vector icon of the trophy, but someone in a suit loved the photo version more."
I would. I'm not a betting man, and I absolutely wouldn't. But if I was a betting man, I'd bet $1,000 right now
Right.
that was something. But then some guy in a suit in FIFA was like, "That looks great. Put the photo on it.
Right. Let's
Make
keep
it spin. They're gonna think it's cool." I'm like, yes, it's cool that it's spin, but I would rather like if I saw that like there's so many amazing motion designers out there. I want to see them bring a 2D thing to life versus a 3D trophy.
Right. Right. So do you think because of it being in North America and the biggest sport event within North America is the Super Bowl, do you think they wanted to take a little piece of the Super Bowl? And because some of the older like when the Super Bowl did a transition into developing a more modern market, including the trophy, a lot of those were very similar to the usability of this, right? Very like detailed Lombardi trophy on there and then Roman numeral, and that was it for like a handful of years. And now as of recent, probably in the last like 5, 6, 7 years, they've been getting a little bit more personal to where it is. But do you think because of that connection to the Super Bowl, they decided to go a little bit more, adding a little bit more realism rather than, iconography?
I would say if it was just in the United States, I could see that being an angle. But considering we're also putting in Mexico and Canada, I think that yet, like some people have said, like, oh, well, it makes it so it doesn't capture too much of one city or the other, or sorry, one country or the other. And I've seen some people's variations where they took like 3 different elements and put them together. And some people liked it, some people didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing is that I think it could have been a little bit more just stylized as far as like graphic wise. And then you can add your 3-dimensional spins to your graphics packages and all these other things and find other ways to be creative and bring it into the identity of the host city.
Right.
Totally. I have nothing against that. I think that's a really cool idea. When they did the color presentation, like I said, the presentation is great, but this is not a presentation. This is a logo. This is something that will be on patches, t-shirts, hats. This is stuff that'll be pasted on socials for years to come and in the year of. So, I mean, sure, maybe things will change between now and when kickoff happens. And maybe during that time, in context, it will look better. But I still don't think that beyond that its lasting legacy will be that it was divisive. I think that was kind of true of the Qatar one as well. So I think that they're 0-2, if anything, with divisiveness.
I feel like the Qatar one, the design was like, I think the logo itself didn't make it divisive. It was just everything around the tournament made
it
the
didn't help.
whole
Well,
tournament
the logo was also kind of a departure in some ways, but yeah, I mean, it still had a little bit more character to it. So, but some people will say, "Oh, well, the 2-6, like that's unique." I'm like, bro,
I mean,
it's just a really, really, really bold font, my friend. That is real. And I mean, some people probably did. I had some friends be like non-design friends. They're like, "Is that a 2-6?" Like they had to actually double take to figure out that it was the year. It's like, yeah. So I guess, I'm sure people will have plenty to say about my opinions on it. But again, like I said, it's divisive, and that's all it ever will be. And I think that, you're either going to look at it and say, "Oh, it's fine."
Right. Yeah.
I've rarely heard anyone say it's amazing. I think the best I've heard is it's fine or it's good enough. And that does not do it for me. When more people are saying it's bad and not enough people are saying it's amazing, it's like, okay. I think you guys are just, you need to take your minimalism glasses off for a minute and think about other things.
Yeah. Well, man, it was nice having you back on. Nice having a really great conversation with you again. It's always a pleasure seeing your work and the work that your team produces over there in Columbus, and seeing that on the timeline makes you want to support the Columbus Crew. That's for damn sure.
You're always welcome to follow our socials, man. But I will say, a shout out to everybody on the team. I think everyone does a great job, especially our video and photo crew and social crew. And, I think we all do such an amazing job. And at the end of the day, like you said, we're trying to create a product regardless of whatever happens on the field. So when the crew is hot, we push that. And when they're not doing so well, you know what? We can still push you to find ways to still love this club. And that's part of our job as storytellers, visual storytellers, is kind of making people fall in love with the crew, however it is.
For sure. Yeah, man. For the audience, thank you for coming by on episode, oh my goodness, 81. Oh my goodness, man. 81. Thank you for coming by on episode 81. Obviously this is a repeat, a second appearance for Kennon. So the episode prior that he was on, episode 42, will be down below. Go listen to that if you haven't. Also, all of Kennon's socials will be down below as well, so go connect with the man. Again, thank you for coming out. I hope you had an awesome time listening today and hope you got something out of it. But as always, make sure you tell someone that you love them and have a great day. All right, we will see you next time. Peace.